Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in our quaint little studio, brought to you in part by our friends at Miracle Made and Harry's. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff, not just giving you our opinions, but hopefully giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or even different than ours. Joining me in studio today, got Ray Ora,
hey,
Jonathan Voico,
live to tape,
writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett.
who loves you, baby?
Yeah, and I am, of course, John Campea. And here's the thing, guys. Today's show's not live. We're pre-recording it. We, are suffering through some live streaming issues with YouTube. Despite the fact that all of our speed tests of our internet in here seem to be top-notch and everything's going good, we tried to do the show live earlier today, and the stream was just crapping out, despite the fact that YouTube Studio was saying we had an excellent connection, and our speed test showed we had wild amounts of bandwidth. But here we are. So we're pre-recording today, and that's all right, because we're still going to talk about the things that we love. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about some predetermined topics. Then in the second part of the show, earlier today, you guys sent in a bunch of questions. We're going to get to answering those questions in the second half of the show. All right. With that down, guys, let's get things started with this, shall we? One of my favorite movie stars in the world, I would even say my second favorite movie star, second only to Ryan Reynolds, is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I just love him. Now, do I think he should appear in Macbeth? Do I think he is Ralph Fiennes, the finest actor in the world without an Oscar? No, but he's charming and fun, and I've had a chance to meet him a couple of times. Totally wonderful guy, and I just love him to death. Now, the thing is, he's got this reputation of being like the hardest working guy in show business. And if his workout routine is anything about that, he's in the gym 3 hours a day, trying to maintain his physique and all that kind of stuff. But there's a new report that just came out in the Wrap suggesting that his new movie, Red One, not to be confused with Red Notice, that terrible movie he did with the aforementioned Ryan Reynolds. Red One he's doing with Chris Evans involves Santa Claus being kidnapped and an elf, an extremely large fellow or whatever that stands for, and Chris Evans playing some kind of private detective, got to go out and find Santa Claus. Well, according to this story that broke in the Wrap, the production budget on this movie's ballooned up to $250 million. Mainly because, the allegations go, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is lazy and always late, sometimes never even showing up to set on days he's supposed to shoot, and sometimes late up to 8 hours. Now, to me, that's tomorrow. That's 8 hours late is no longer late. 8 hours late that's freaking tomorrow. But I thought it would be interesting enough to read through some of the stuff in this article and then to discuss some of these accusations about arguably the biggest box office draw in Hollywood. It says this: for more than 2 decades, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has nurtured a reputation as a hard-working, muscle-bound action comedy movie star with considerable box office drawing power. But Red One, a high-powered Christmas crowd pleaser for Amazon MGM, which is going to be a theatrically released film, has turned into a massive budgetary misadventure, casting Johnson's fame and work ethic in a different light. Originally slated for release during 2023 Christmas season, the Red One theatrical release has been delayed to November of 2024, supposedly due to the labor strikes. But the story is a lot messier. Production issues ranging from Johnson's chronic lateness and a lack of professionalism on set to producers' inexperience caused the cost of the movie, co-starring Chris Evans and J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus, to spiral upward to a final budget of over $250 million. A sum more befitting of a superhero tentpole. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting. According to more than a dozen insiders directly involved in the project, Red One production was a perfect storm of problems compounded by the inexperience of the film's lead producer, Hiram Garcia. That, of course, is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's production partner and business partner in Seven Buck Productions, and Amazon MGM feature and production executives Julie Rappaport and Glenn Gaynor, who are overseeing the project. Insiders told The Wrap that Johnson showed up as much as 8 hours late to set on the movie, forcing the crew to shoot around him on some days. On previous films, Johnson has made a habit of peeing in a water bottle to save time and upsetting crew members. I have heard that before, but it's actually been, whenever I've heard that story, that Johnson in the middle of a shot will just turn around, grab a bottle and pee in a bottle instead of going to the bathroom, it's because he's so dedicated to keeping everything on schedule that he doesn't want to waste people's time by running to the bathroom and coming back. At least that's how it's always been presented, that he's so dedicated to keeping everything quick and on time and on schedule that he'll pee in a bottle, which is, by the way, the exact same thing I used to do when playing World of Warcraft because I didn't want to step away from the computer. Anyway, that's another disgusting story for another time. All right. It goes on to say, Amazon was hoping to launch a potential franchise with Red One, which is about, a villain who kidnaps Santa Claus from the North Pole, after which an elf, extremely large and formidable operatives join forces with a bounty hunter. Then it goes on to talk about this. Okay. In a statement to the Wrap, a spokesperson for Amazon, MGM, denied there were any on-set issues with Red One or delays caused by Johnson's lateness or $7 inexperience, which caused the film to balloon. This is what Amazon had to say officially about these allegations. Dwayne Johnson and $7 have been incredible partners on Red One, a film that audiences of all ages are going to love this holiday season, the spokesman said. Our testing has been very strong. The reaction from CinemaCon speaks for itself. By the way, they did not do a CinemaCon presentation. I think they showed some footage to a couple of hand-picked journalists that they picked out. But even then, we haven't heard them say anything. Whatever. And we couldn't have made it without Dwayne's constant work and support. Any reporting, says Amazon, that implies that we got to this point with him showing up 7 to 8 hours late is both ridiculous and false. Okay, now listen, to me, this sounds like nonsense. I'm reading this morning, and I'm like, none of this jives with what I've heard about Dwayne Johnson's on-set behavior before. I've always heard that he works very hard. He's the hardest working guy on a set. Even his reported feud with Vin Diesel, he was mad at Vin Diesel for like showing up late,
right, yeah,
and stuff like that. Or so the stories went, right? And so maybe you think, okay, well, maybe this did happen here, but maybe this is just a bad time for The Rock. The Rock's also doing WWE stuff. Maybe he's got other things. But apparently, this has been going on with some other films as well. Check this out. The examples of Johnson's tardiness are numerous and well documented, from showing up late for fan events to leaving entire sets idle while he was off doing 3-hour workouts. And it talks about some of his stuff with WWE. Apparently, he showed up late for a fan event prior to WrestleMania. It says, on the set of Red One, Johnson's pattern of lateness proved more damaging. Johnson was late an average of 7 to 8 hours per day. Again, to me, that's not late. That's tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it missed 7 to 8 hours today, ballooning costs by at least $50 million, according to 3 insiders who insisted on anonymity for fear of being fired. It was a fucking disaster, said one insider. On days when Johnson didn't show up at all, the production crew was forced to just shoot around him, the insider said. Dwayne truly doesn't give an F, one insider said bluntly. In response to questions from the Wrap, 2 sources close to production and one close to $7 all insisted that Johnson's averaged no more than being 1 hour late on Red One set. Okay, now, then they start talking about other movies that Dwayne's been involved in. Let's see if we can find this here. Oh yeah, when talking about Ballers, Johnson's tardiness has been an issue for a number of years. They rent a location, they can shoot as much as they can of other actors while they wait for him to decide if he's going to come to set, a producer who visited the set of HBO's Ballers told The Wrap. A former production assistant on the show collaborated this, saying he was regularly 3 to 4 hours late to set, keeping 100 plus crew members waiting for no reason, according to a third insider. In March of 2017, Johnson was 6 hours late to the Baller set. Now, this is where I'm going to tell you a little personal story. Remember that movie Rampage he did about the video game?
Mm-hmm.
On the set of 2018's Rampage, Johnson was late an average of 45 hours daily, with one co-star keeping records of his tardiness, according to 2 insiders. Dwayne's call times are never, ever published on the call sheet, one of the insiders added. It's because one of the actors on Rampage was keeping a log of how late Dwayne Johnson was to set every day. A spokesperson for Johnson did not respond to a request for comment late Monday about Rampage and Ballers. Okay, so I read that part about Ballers, or about Rampage. Because I'm not going to say who, but I happen to be friends with, let's just say, a very high up person.
Top men.
Top men. I happen to be friends with a very high up person who was involved in the making of Rampage. And I reached out to them this morning and I said, hey, they're saying, did you see the story in the Wrap? They're saying Dwayne Johnson was always late for work on Rampage. And they wrote back to me, it's bullshit. So Rob comes in this morning. We're talking about the story. I said, yeah, but I got a friend. He knows who I'm talking about. I got a friend on Rampage who told me it's bullshit. So he said this whole Wrap story, totally bullshit. They're right. It's bullshit. But then he texted me later and I misunderstood what he meant by bullshit, because bullshit wasn't the story. He's referring to Dwayne Johnson's behavior as bullshit. And I'm going to bring it up here, not on screen, but I'm going to bring it up here. I said, oh, so you're saying that the story's actually true. He said this, my friend said this, Dwayne Johnson completely fucked us in the production of Rampage. He says, he does this all the time. Don't get me wrong. He's as nice as his public perception pretends he is. He is really that nice of a guy, but he is always late. And I think everybody in the industry is now tired of his bullshit. So I don't know what to do with that. I am a Dwayne Johnson fan. I love The Rock. But I'll tell you what, as much as I love The Rock, this is adding to the growing hill of stuff that kind of puts some tarnish on this really great image Dwayne Johnson has. Now, one of the interesting things that my friend said is like, hey, make no mistake about it. Everything you see about Dwayne Johnson, about how nice of a guy he is and how really, really kind and sweet he is, absolutely true. He is all of those things. I've talked to many people in the industry who've worked with Dwayne, and they all say the same thing. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Great. Okay, good. But if you're going to show up late, and listen, I am married to the world's most perfect woman, except for maybe when it comes to being on time for things. What? Well, I didn't say anything. And nothing drives me more crazy than people who are late. Nothing makes me angrier at myself than when I am the one who's late, because when you are late, I don't care if you're meeting for dinner plans. I don't care if you're meeting at a movie. And I don't care if it means you're showing up for work. You are telling everybody else that you are more important to them, that you are more important than them, and that you do not respect them and you don't respect their time because they decided to be there on time and you didn't. Everything else in your life is more important than what you were supposed to be doing right now. And so being late myself drives me crazy. People being late drives me crazy. One of my favorite lines in a movie, guys, you know, I love that movie Best of the Best with Roberts. What's his first name? Eric Roberts and James Earl Jones. One of my favorite lines in that movie. James Earl Jones, the coach of the American Taekwondo team, is giving them their instructions. It's their first meeting. He says, and one more thing, don't be late. Don't ever be late. I love that. Or as Chris Carr would say, in the entertainment industry, if you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're 10 minutes late, you're fired.
Unless you're The Rock.
Unless you're The Rock and you can show up 8 hours late. And I'm telling you what, is this as bad as finding out he's a real dick and an asshole? No. I mean, I'm very happy that we're still hearing he's every bit of a nice guy as everybody says he is. But this would drive me crazy. Rob, you've worked on the set of many movies and things like that. give people an understanding about why being on time, especially when it comes to movie production, is so important. And have you ever come across a situation where you had somebody who was habitually late showing up to set, and what kind of damage that can cause?
Okay, first of all, being late to set is the worst thing you can possibly do, and I'll tell you why. You only have, when you are scheduling a day on a set to shoot, you have a schedule and you have a number of pages that you're supposed to shoot that day. Now, you have a finite amount of money to shoot that day over the course of 12 hours. If you go beyond 12 hours, you have to pay more money. So as you're setting up a schedule and budgeting a movie, this is crucial in terms of how much money you have. There are 43,200 seconds in 12 hours. And you have a finite amount of money.
Sounds like you're about to break into the song from Rent.
Oh, no. I know, right? No. There are 43,200 seconds, which means, John, you can actually figure, say you have $250,000 to shoot for that day. That means, I'm going to round it up, that every second costs $6. Every second. So anytime you're not shooting, you are burning up $6 a second. And if you have scheduled 4 pages to shoot, and you're expecting Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to show up and shoot 4 pages, and he shows up 8 hours late, you have burned up that money. Now, here's the thing. Where's that money going to come from again? You only had it. You had that $250,000 for that one day to shoot those 4 pages. If you don't make your day,
and that's a modest movie.
And that's, that if you can't make your day, I'll tell you something. I produced a $4 million movie for Warner Brothers in Bulgaria. We went half a day over for a technical problem, not for anything other than that we had to fix. I got a phone call the next morning. Well, how are you going to fix this? The studio is pissed. And this was a tiny budget movie. And we went over. I said, look, it was a driving scene. We were dealing with camera mounts and things. We can make it up on our final day that we were shooting. You can't make up days when you're shooting with your main star unless you add days, which means you have to find another $250,000. And if this happens every day, as they said it did on Red One, that's why the budget balloons up to $250 million.
Well, they were saying the article alleges that just his lateness cost them $50 million.
And if you can see that, because can you imagine $250,000 a day and you're only shooting 4 of those 12 hours? That's insane. And I do not, John, I have to say, I'm sure Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's a nice guy, but it's inexplicable to me why a big star that commands the kind of money he commands, why would he not show up? And not only that, John, you have hundreds of people waiting to work. It is disrespectful to the financiers of the studio. It's terrible to your crew. There is nothing more toxic than a crew showing up.
And by the way, you're paying all those people 100, 200, 300 crew members. You are paying all those people as they sit around and wait for you to show up.
And the thing is, they're there to do the best job that they can. They're there to make sure, and when somebody doesn't show up, if there's one cog in that machine that just decides to not be there, nothing can work. And what that does is that affects the entire crew on many different levels. And, to me, obviously, the stars, this is the worst kind of, when they say it's diva behavior. If this is true, it's true of anybody who doesn't show up, any actor who doesn't show up. And the thing is, it's usually the actors, because anyone else who doesn't show up gets fired. You're out of here, buddy. You don't even get do-overs. If you're late to set by an hour, you're gone. Even if your mother was dying. Sorry, we can't have that. And so I hear something like this, and I find it to be inexplicable, because somebody who wants to continue a film career to cost a studio $50 million, where's that money supposed to come from? Someone pull it out of their rear end?
And listen, there's probably nobody in the industry that's busier than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So I'll understand a day that you show up. You know what? Dennis Zen and I, we had a day where we had booked that we were going to spend the afternoon with Kevin Hart. And this is back when we were at AMC, and Kevin Hart was going to meet us at a AMC theater in Los Angeles. And we were going to have a couple hours with him to do an interview and stuff like that. Kevin Hart was 4 hours late. Now, the reason, though, he was late was because the next day was the MTV Movie Awards, and he was playing a big part of it. And that day was the run through, and their rehearsals were running 3-4 hours late. He couldn't just get up and leave the MTV Movie Awards rehearsals, come to us. And you know what? So I get that. That'll happen.
Yes.
But every day on every project, I mean, that it's disappointing. It's disappointing to hear. Again, I'm glad I'm still hearing reports that he's super nice. I'm glad to hear he's as kind of a person as I was led to believe when I've sat down and talked with Dwayne. He couldn't have been a greater guy in the world. But I don't know that I'd work with Dwayne.
Doesn't he have someone that sets his schedules too? Maybe she could work, whoever that is.
He's got to have like 5 assistants, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you know he's always late, then set the schedules.
But the thing is, if you take a job working on a movie, you shouldn't have anything else to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That with the amount of money you're being paid and the amount of money that's being, I mean, John, $250 million.
And $7 is a partner on this movie. Hiram Garcia, his business partner, is the executive, the main producer of the movie. You know, Ray, to your point, this is going to get back to where I know, but Ann and I have started doing that with your other sister, with Olive. We're like, if we need Olive somewhere,
you say
by 1 o'clock, we tell Olive,
11.
We tell her 11:30. We're meeting at 11:30. Seriously, that's what we do. And then she'll show up close to 1 o'clock.
It doesn't work.
And even then, it doesn't work a lot of the time. Anyway, guys, question is for you. I am a unapologetic big Dwayne The Rock Johnson fan, but I am really disappointed to hear this. And I was expecting reaching out to my friend who had worked with them to hear, no, that story's nonsense. But instead they got back to, oh, no, Dwayne completely effed us. He completely effed us. I mean, what do you guys think about that? I mean, does the fact that apparently everybody still says he's a super nice guy, but does this affect the way you see him or look at him? Maybe it's not important at all, but man, that seems pretty disrespectful to me. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of my favorite guys also in the business is a little fella by the name of Chris Hemsworth.
Little fella.
You might have seen him. Spunky, can-do kind of attitude.
Skinny kid.
Little skinny kid.
Not late.
Never late. Never late.
Wow.
Always on time. Well, you know, of course, a lot of people, we all love him as Thor, right? We love Chris Hemsworth as Thor. And Thor Ragnarok, I think, is a top 10, maybe, but definitely a top 15 greatest comic book movie. I love Thor Ragnarok. Love it. They brought a little bit more joy to the character of Thor. You know, Chris Hemsworth got to play him a little bit differently, and it was great. Then came Thor Love and Thunder, where they said, you know, when we added a little bit more jovialness and a little bit more silliness, that really worked. Let's add 100 times more. And it ended up making Thor Love and Thunder, I think everybody agrees, not as good as Thor Ragnarok. How much less good is up to individual opinions, but I think we all agree it was less good. Well, there is one person Chris Hemsworth says is to blame for that. Chris Hemsworth. That's what Hemsworth is saying. He's saying in a story in Variety that he takes the blame for Thor Love and Thunder, saying, I got caught up in the improv and the wackiness and became a parody of myself. In the article, it says this. It says, Chris Hemsworth graces the cover of Vanity Fair's May 2024 issue, where he revealed that he feels Marvel fans deserve another Thor movie after the whiff that was 2022's Thor Love and Thunder. By the way, that movie still made well over $700 million. Just going to throw that out there. The actor already admitted to GQ last year that his fourth standalone Thor was, quote unquote, too silly for its own good, but the missteps appeared to continue to haunt him. And he said this, I got caught up in the improv and the wackiness, and I became a parody of myself, Hemsworth told Vanity Fair. I didn't stick the landing.
Wow.
So, first of all, can I just say how much respect I have for somebody? Because nobody has ever going to deliver perfection all the time. But when they don't, to be the first ones in the room to raise their hand and say, that's on me. That's on me. I kind of like that too in professional sports. Like when somebody on a team does something stupid and hurts their team, and a lot in the NBA too, you'll see somebody raise their hand saying, that was me. That was mine. I love seeing guys and individuals own mistakes. And listen, I can see why, because Chris Hemsworth before Thor Ragnarok had started talking about how he thought Thor was getting a bit stale. He wasn't having as much fun playing him. And then along comes Taika Waititi, and they do Thor Ragnarok a little bit differently. And it rejuvenates his love for the character, and he's really into it. He loves it. I can understand the temptation to then push that even further. Mm-hmm. And, we were having a good discussion. Jonathan brought up a good point too, saying, well, it was still Taika Waititi was still the director. And I said, true. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I always say the director is the one who's in charge. They're the be all end all. But a showrunner on a big famous television show, it was the show Bones, said this once: a showrunner's relationship with an actor, the cast, is unique. In year one, they work for you. Like the actors work for the showrunner. He said, if the show makes it to season 2, you're their partner. But if a show gets to season 3, you work for them. And I don't think anybody would deny that Thor is Chris Hemsworth's. I mean, it's Kevin Feige's. But Taika Waititi was the third director that the character would work with. If you don't count the Russo brothers and the other appearances in the MCU, it was really Hemsworth's character. And they decided to dive more into it. And Hemsworth wanted to improv more, and it got too silly. And maybe this is a situation where the director maybe should have had a little bit more of an iron hand and reeled it in. But Taika Waititi loves that stuff too, right? So he was probably loving what Chris Hemsworth was doing at the same time. Anyway, Rob, I love hearing Hemsworth saying this because he's saying something that we all believe, and him saying this was me doing improv and I just went too far with it. And I also love hearing him say the fans deserve another Thor movie, because we've been wondering if he might be done with the character. Anyway, what do you take away from his comments?
Well, I think it's a perception. Whenever you can turn perception onto yourself and dig deep and question why did these things happen and realize, well, it was me all along. I admire that incredibly so. The problem is when you're dealing with movies, you've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars of other people's cash, and luckily the movie was still successful. It wasn't as successful as they had hoped, but it still made money. And I think, John, the way you put it was probably right, that Hemsworth and Waititi were having a great time on set, and they didn't realize how far they'd gone because they had the script. Everybody's like, that was hilarious. And everyone's having, like even Russell Crowe doing his voice, they're probably like, that was great. Keep doing that.
I still defend the Russell Crowe stuff.
I
still think that's the only thing that worked in that movie.
I mean, it's funny. There's Russell Crowe. I love Russell Crowe, but then when it comes time to put everything together, you have what you have, and if you've gone down a path, you can't fix it. You've got to go that route. And I'm curious. It made me think about like Lord and Miller on Solo.
Yeah.
How you heard that.
That's a good.
Point. That Lawrence Kasdan was like, you're off book, you're off script, and it's too silly. And I could see Lord Miller going for that 22 or 23 Jump Street vibe.
Yeah.
And I can see that kind of thing happening because when you're being creative and everybody's having a blast making each other laugh, you think that it is great. But then, that's great sometimes for theater. And when you're getting too big on a movie set, that looks fine when you're there. But when you actually start looking at the footage doesn't work as much as you might have thought it did. It wasn't as funny looking back, and maybe they ran into that situation that they were too far down the road, and they did what they could. But I think overall, it's funny because you watch the beginning of the movie and Christian Bale's God Butcher performance, it's like he's in a different film,
yeah.
And I respect Hemsworth because I think what we really want is a heavy metal Thor movie. We want some Wagnerian Led Zeppelin and not like the Immigrant Song, which was cool, but in terms of just using it once, the whole idea of making some kick-ass Molly Hatchet Death Dealer metal Thor movie where everybody's metal and not just Thor.
I don't know that that's what the audience wants.
I don't know, man. I want to see a Wagnerian epic.
I don't know that what the audience wants. Yeah, there's going to be the 5%ers. but I don't know if what the majority of the audience wants is this heavy, dark, dour.
Oh, I
Thor,
don't mean
right?
that. No, I want someone to say, yeah, man, kick ass. Like you're at a metal show. Yeah.
But I think when you look at Thor Ragnarok, I think that
Never
showed
do
like
that again.
I think they did want. I think the audience enjoyed getting.
Well, I think Thor Ragnarok came close.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
it was,
it did.
but there was something along more on those, because what Love and Thunder did was it lost the cool aspects of metal.
Yes, it did.
And it
Yes,
went
it
more
did.
Spinal Tap metal. And what people want is like, I want, Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime.
You know what happened?
But a
Was,
Thor movie.
in Ragnarok, when the heavy stuff was happening, you felt it because the silliness, the more jovialness were accents.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when Immigrant Song kicks in, you feel it, right?
And it was rad.
Now, there are moments in Thor Love and Thunder when some serious hardcore action stuff is happening, but there was so much silliness that you couldn't really get into the heavier, more serious parts of it. Right? So it was like almost the opposite of what they had with Ragnarok.
Yeah, and like, great heavy metal is both serious and kind of fun.
Now, here's a question
Like
for
Iron
everybody.
Maiden, dude.
Do you think they'll do a Thor 5?
Yes.
Because remember this, in as much as we all agree that Thor Love and Thunder was a step down, it's even as a step down movie, it made over $700 million at the box office. I don't think any of the Thor movies have made $1 billion, but they've all made a lot of money. So you think they will do a Thor 5?
I do, because, the thing about Thor, of all the Marvel Cinematic Universe main characters, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor has, I think, a 4-quadrant appeal. The way Captain America inherently, because he's Captain America, has more politics. But Thor, man, you can have Surtur. You can play the Immigrant Song. You can have kids like they did in Love and Thunder. You can do all these crazy things. And like a Thor movie can appeal to both kids and adults the way, say, an Iron Man movie might have a problem with. You know what I mean?
All right, guys. Question is for you.
Bring on
What
Thor.
do you think about this? Chris Hemsworth is saying, yeah, the problems with Thor Love and Thunder, that was me going too silly, becoming a parody of myself and doing too much of my own improv. I respect that a lot. It sounds like they've kind of identified the problem that they had. Do you think they will do another one? And if so, do you think they'll be able to get back to that awesomeness that was, like, say, Thor Ragnarok? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down, let's move on to this, shall we? One of the movies that I've been looking forward to, but not super excited for, has been Furiosa, a Mad Max story. Of course, it is the prequel story to Furiosa, previously played by Charlize Theron, brilliantly, by the way, portrayed by Charlize Theron. And now we've got a new one coming out with the great Anya Taylor-Joy. Now, at CinemaCon, they showed us a bunch of stuff and a lot of footage. And I've gone from being interested to being full-blown excited for this movie now. I loved what I saw, including Chris Hemsworth's Dementis. He looks amazing in it. Well, now, according to report, it is going to be Furiosa, the longest film in the Mad Max trilogy, or the Mad Max franchise. This comes from the Direct, who said this: Furiosa and Mad Max saga's runtime is already breaking records since it's longer than any of the previous Mad Max movies. Furiosa serves as a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, featuring Anya Taylor-Joy as a titular character, telling the story of how a sadistic warlord, Dementis, kidnapped her, her eventual escape, and return to the Citadel. According to Cryptic HD Quality, who has given the runtimes in several movies before, the Mad Max saga movie Furiosa has a runtime of 2 hours and 28 minutes.
Not long enough.
Or 148 minutes long. Now, to put that in perspective, the original Mad Max was only 88 minutes long.
Yeah.
Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, was only 96 minutes long. Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome, I still think my favorite Mad Max movie, came in at 107 minutes. Mad Max Fury Road was 120 minutes. And this one is just saying, what is it? 148? Is that what they said?
2
So
hours, yeah.
now, listen, at CinemaCon, when they were showing us the footage, they broke down also the acts for us. It said Act 1, the whatever, the escape. And then they showed us a whole bunch of footage from that. Then after they showed us a bunch of footage, Act 2, there's something else. And Act 3. And it felt like it was going to be a long movie. And Ray can attest to that. Ray was in there. It felt like it was going to be a long movie. But I'll tell you what, long or not, the footage they showed us made me drool. I was so down for everything. And then George Miller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Chris Hemsworth came on stage, and they talked about the philosophy that went into it and all this kind of stuff. And it was pretty damn impressive and everything. And I cannot wait. Rob, you're hearing them now saying this Furiosa is the longest of the Mad Max franchise, a franchise you revere. You love the Mad Max films.
Revere.
What do you think about the sounds of it being the longest they've ever done?
Well, that excites me. Now, here's the thing. I talked to somebody who saw this movie, and for better or for worse, why are you laughing at me?
I don't know. Just
For better or for worse, somebody said this was the Phantom Menace of the Mad Max franchise.
I don't like that at all.
I don't like that at all. I was like, what does that mean? I thought Fury Road was one of the most I saw for my birthday, on my birthday at the Chinese theater. It was insane. I felt like it was so great. It felt like I was getting punched in the face for 2 hours, and I loved every minute of it. And go figure. I loved it so much. So the idea of doing a Furiosa prequel appeals to me. He's using a different cinematographer, but the first Fury Road really combined great use of CG with practical effects. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. I want to see more of that, please. I can't wait for this movie. So making it long, 148 minutes, like I said, I could watch a Mad Max movie for 4 hours if I had to. I'm very excited to see this film, and I hope it's great. All my hopes, as Uhura said in Star Trek 3.
I'm very excited to hear your guys' reviews of this film.
Reviews. Yeah. Now, you were there, Ray. Yeah. You were at CinemaCon. The footage, you like the footage they showed us.
I don't think. I think Ray will be able to sustain himself through this movie.
Yeah.
No, because you were able to sustain yourself through Dune.
But also, I like to point out that if I feel I can, Garfield movie comes out the same day.
Yeah, you can just flip over there.
You can just flip out of the theater and go into the other one.
Yeah.
Hey, shockingly, the early screening for Garfield, I looked it up on the AMC app. It's almost full. There's only one screening for the early access for Garfield.
Oh, okay. Well, early that's.
But
sense.
Even that's shocking, isn't it? I mean,
are you really thinking about going to see Garfield before you go to see?
People love cats.
Furiosa.
When you guys go see Furiosa, he's going to go see Garfield.
Yeah. No. Yeah, we'll see it.
All right, guys. The question is for you. What do you think about this? According to report, they're saying that Mad Max Furiosa is going to be 2 hours and 28 minutes, the longest in the franchise so far. Does that excite you? Does it scare you? Whatever you guys think, jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still got to talk about Jacob Batalon, who plays Ned in the Spider-Man franchise. He's made some comments about he doesn't know where things are going right now. And also, there's reports going around that Chris Evans has actually signed up to return to the MCU. Where will that be? We're going to talk about that and a few things more. But before we do, we're going to just take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Miracle Made. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Miracle Made. Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Inspired by NASA, Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so that you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. When they arrived at our house, my wife Ann loved the feel of them so much, she couldn't even wait for me to get home to put them on our bed. Miracle Made has self-cleaning. These sheets are infused with silver that prevents up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. Miracle Sheets also have incredible comfort and quality. Miracle Sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So go to TryMiracle, that's TryMiracle.com/Campea to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code Campea at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you will get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/Campea and use the code Campea to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Campea to treat yourself. And thank you to our friends at Miracle Made for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, I absolutely love John Watts and Tom Holland's Spider-Man films. I've just had a blast with them. Right from Homecoming, which I thought was great. I thought Far From Home was the weakest of the 3, but still very enjoyable. And then they came out with No Way Home, which I don't think is as good as Homecoming, but it was great. They did a lot of great things, big crowd-pleasing moments. I really love the films. Well, one of the elements and one of the guys that makes that film and all those films what they are is the supporting actor in the film who plays Ned, Jacob Batalon, who I just think is phenomenal in it. Anyway, recently, Jacob, who was promoting his new film, Tarot, like the tarot cards movie coming out.
That?
Yep. He was asked about where are we going to see Ned in the new movies and what's going on with Ned right now? And he said the following. He said, I honestly don't know. I don't know what any future holds for any of them in that world, Barthelone said to comicbook.com in a new interview promoting his next film, Tarot. I just feel like things happen, they happen. I hope so. I definitely hope so. Then he said this. It's sad that he has no friends anymore. It's that just got Ray
alone.
That just got Ray right there.
Oh,
by the way, being married into a Filipino family, the best part of Spider-Man: No Way Home was sitting with Anne and Ray in the theaters, and Ned's Filipino grandmother comes in and starts yelling at them in Tagalog in Filipino. And like everybody in the theater's just listening, and Ray and Ann are howling because they're the only ones in the theater who knew what the grandmother was saying. Oh, man. Which was great. Anyway.
Can I point out one thing?
Yes.
How he says in that world, meaning we may be breaking off. I know you don't believe it, John, but we may be really getting away from Zendaya and Jacob's roles here.
I don't think so.
I know you've been saying that, but a part of me kind of sees if they went that way, I could see how it ended that way. Like he was saying goodbye to that, making sure they are all right, and then he's off to his new world, right?
Yeah, I don't see that at all, and I'll tell you why. Because, and this kind of goes to the heart of this story, I think. In a lot of these movies, you can have this great character and your great lead, but they only can be as good as the heart and soul of the supporting characters around them. For example, a lot of people pointed out with Daredevil, them not having, when they were in their original way they were going to do Daredevil, no Foggy, no Karen. For a lot of people, that was no bueno. Like that's because while Charlie Cox is great in it as Matt, and Matt's a great character, without those characters around him to highlight parts of Matt's character, but also to bring dimensions and aspects and levels to the movie that one character does not bring, I think is a very tricky proposition. And that brings us to Jacob Batalon. Ned, I think, in these movies is more than the quirky best friend. Ned brings a level of humanity and heart, I think, to these Spider-Man movies that you can't replace.
Ned is Sam to Peter's Frodo.
Yes, he's Sam. Now imagine the Lord of the Rings movies. Frodo's the main guy. Imagine those movies without Samwise Gamgee, right? Without Pip, without those guys. They bring something to these stories and to these movies that you simply cannot have. And you're going to be left with a big hole if you don't have them there. They provide something because in many ways, Ned is kind of the audience in these Spider-Man movies. Ned kind of represents us. we're the guy in the chair. And I think while he doesn't have hours of screen time and all that kind of stuff, I think you are fundamentally losing a part of the soul of this character if you don't have Ned there. You can say the same about MJ as well. MJ represents a different aspect.
I mean, could you imagine if they left like Michael Pena out of an Ant-Man movie?
And look what happened when they did. I'm not saying Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania would have been a good movie if they just added Michael Pena back in. I'm just saying the first bad Ant-Man movie was the one you didn't have Michael Pena in. But again, and we talked about that, right? When Ant-Man came out, it's like, Luis is just such an important part of the DNA of that story that it becomes very jarring to me as an audience member when that is suddenly gone. And because of that, I just think you cannot do Spider-Man 4 and then suddenly just not have Jacob Bartolone. And but remember, they haven't written this movie yet, right? They haven't written it yet. But I just think if you try to now come out and do another one without him, also without MJ, it's not Spider-Man anymore. It loses something that is just too important and vital, I think, to the story. I don't know, Rob. Like, maybe I'm spouting overly poetic here, but I think he's absolutely essential to the heart of and the spirit of what these movies have been. How do you see it?
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, plus he's a really good actor in that role.
Yes, he is.
Like, is it in Infinity War when Peter's like, I need a distraction? And he turns around. The way he's screaming, he's just a great actor. And I'll tell you something. From a storytelling point of view, Peter knows how important Ned is to him. Wouldn't it be interesting to know that this is my lifelong best friend and I've lost him, and it's incumbent upon me to go find him again? I mean, that's a great story element. Like, how does Peter convince his best friend who's forgotten all about him that their lives need to be entwined with one another because he's so important to him? I mean, that's a really interesting story point. And how do you do that? I don't know, but it could be really interesting in this course of a movie.
Anyway, that's why, Ray, I was saying, I just can't imagine that. Now, you can have Peter show up in Civil War because you're surrounded by a whole bunch of Avengers. You can have Peter show up in an Avengers movie because he's surrounded by a whole bunch of Avengers. But I think if you're doing a Spider-Man movie, you got to have the heart and soul there. And I just think Ned and MJ have become part of that.
But what if the next couple, let's say 1 or 2 movies, he's just off on his own. He's fighting these villains that we've wanted to see him fight. But it all comes back to him reuniting with them in like the 3rd movie, which would make a big impact of him going back to that. But I just feel like maybe it should be time where he goes off on his own without that baggage with him, where he tries to discover things by himself, or like, you know, that could be something that could be happen too. Like, I believe me, I love Ned. I would love him in all the Spider-Man movies from now until the day I die, even MJ. But maybe Sony's thinking, maybe let's let Spider-Man go off on his own for a little bit. Maybe that's the way.
That just doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me, though.
Right, true. But
and remember, it's been, when did No Way Home come out? 2021? I want to say 2021.
Yeah,
I want to say 2021.
So that was 3 years ago. Like, so the audience has been living with
2021.
So it's been 3 years now. Minimum, it's going to be, by the time this movie gets made, produced, and in theaters, it's going to be 5 years in between No Way Home and that. That's 5 years that Peter's been without MJ and Ned. You know what I mean?
And let's not forget that we did a story the other week where Holland's going to be a part of the creative process now. So he's friends with them in real life.
Yeah, they're like hanging all the time.
If he had a choice, they're on that bus with him.
Yeah, but
wouldn't it be wild if the movie opened with 5 years later? You know,
but it literally would be 5 years
that's
later,
what I mean.
right?
Like in that was so shocking when you're watching Endgame when it went to the 5 years later credit. You know, I was like, you know, I think everybody in the theater, we saw it together, had a collective gasp. Like, 5 years, the reality of that, like he's been on his own for 5 years, that could be really, really interesting.
And I got a question for you guys. Do you guys think that they're going to go on with that post-credit scene from Venom? Or do you think they'll just scrap that? Do you think that's going to be part of the story?
I think it's scrapped.
It was just fan service, right? You think?
You know what? I
It
don't.
opened a door. They may not walk through it though.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I don't
Jonathan said it
necessarily think it was just fan service. I think it might have more been like throwing your hook in the water a little bit. I think they put that in there, said, let's see what this feels like. You know, kind of like playing just the tip. Let's see how this feels like. And if it works, let's pursue it and go for it. Sorry. Let's pursue it and go for it. And if it doesn't feel like it works, then we just abandon it. I don't think anybody felt like it worked.
Or pregnant. That's it.
Or pregnant. Or
I get it now.
Or soaking if you're at a Mormon school.
Oh boy!
Metal, yeah.
Pound
So-
town.
I mean, it just leaves. I just think that ended up being a road going to nowhere.
I agree.
I don't think they're going to revisit the little symbiote piece still flopping. I honestly think they're just
Unless,
gonna let that
John, Secret Wars. They might revisit it for Secret Wars.
Could there, because that's technically where he
go.
would have gotten.
Could, but I don't see them doing it.
Because, I mean, that's where Venom was introduced.
Everything's a mess anyway.
Man, little did they know when they wrote that.
I know.
Everything's a mess.
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? Jacob Bartolone is saying, look, right now, I don't know what's going on with the movies. I just think it's really sad that, you know, Ned's lost his friend, but I really think he's an absolute essential part of these stories. Do you agree? Do you not agree? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, unequivocally, not my all-time favorite comic book character, because that's Magneto. Magneto's always been my number one favorite comic book character. But my favorite character in the MCU is Captain America. Specifically, Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers, to me, is Captain America, is Steve Rogers, is Captain America, is Steve Rogers. That's the way it is. And listen, I think Sam's going to have a great run as Captain America. No disrespect to that. I think it's going to be wonderful, but that's my favorite guy. And when they moved away from him and Tony Stark, I've been saying for a long time, they will be back. They 100% will be back. Now, there is a new report going around suggesting that it's a done deal. Headline in comicbookmovie.com is writing, Avengers star Chris Evans rumored to have signed on for an MCU return, and here's when you'll see him. Now, it goes on to quote a Twitter source. Granted, it's one of these Twitter sources that has been right on a number of occasions.
Okay.
Not so right on a couple of occasions as well. So take it with a big grain of salt. Has been right, has been wrong. But they're saying that it's actually done, that Chris Evans' return to the MCU is there. Now, there are rumors going around that the place, and rumors I have heard myself, going around that Chris Evans is going to pop up in Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, this would make sense because all you got to do is go back and look at Ryan Reynolds' other recent movie he did with Sean Levy called Free Guy,
Right.
where one of the great cameos in that movie that caught the whole audience off guard, of course, was Chris Evans popping up in that movie with a great one line, and that was it. But they clearly have a connection, right? Ryan and Chris Evans clearly have a connection there. It would make sense. Now, let me be clear. I have not heard from any of the principals involved that this is what's happening. But I do believe that this is what's happening. I think we're going to see Chris Evans pop up in Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't think it's going to be the harbinger of his return for Secret Wars. I think
Right.
that'll be a separate thing. But I do expect to see Chris Evans in Secret Wars. I do. But I fully believe we are indeed going to see him pop up in this. And this, if there's any truth to it, and that's a giant grain of salt, but if there's any truth to it, that Chris has signed on to appear, I think what we're talking about is Deadpool and Wolverine. At least that's how I see it. Rob, been hearing these stories. We've been talking a lot about Chris Evans and Tony Stark returning. Just recently, Robert Downey Jr. made comments saying, I would come back to the MCU in a heartbeat. He said, I love that. He said, the MCU is a part of my DNA. Of course, not announcing that he's going to come back. He just said he's willing to come back any moment. This about Chris Evans. Do you believe the report? If so, where do you think we see him pop up first? What do you think of all this?
I think 100% he's going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine, and there's so many different ways you could go. I mean, obviously, we know they go to Sokovia. Like, we see they even mention it in one of the trailers. So who was in Sokovia but the Avengers? So you could have a different version of like in Endgame when you saw 2012 Captain America, from the first
Right.
Avengers movie. You could have old Steve Rogers. Maybe Deadpool goes and finds old Steve Rogers
On the moon.
On the moon, and there's just the myriad of possibilities that, and you never know. They're dealing with Fox. They're dealing with the MCU. There's so many ways to go, but I would imagine we might even see multiple versions of Captain America. All of those things.
I
like,
don't disagree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, what if Deadpool shows up at the end of Endgame when they're dancing together? Deadpool opens a door. Hey, buddy, I need you.
Hate to interrupt.
Yeah, I hate to interrupt you guys. And there's Agent Carter and there's
Because remember in the you weren't there, but in the trailers, Deadpool's standing in the TVA, and they bring up on the screen, Thor, Captain America, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But in the footage they showed us at CinemaCon, which is a little bit of an expanded scene of that, Wade is standing there and he focuses on Steve Rogers on the screen, and you just hear Wade go, "Cap," and then standing and doing his salute. It just, and look, this is just theory time. But to throw out theory time there, wildly unfounded guessing at things, we saw also in the CinemaCon footage or in the new trailer, that he finds Wolverine is like, listen, I don't know how to save the world. You do. What if Wolverine's not the only guy?
That's I was about to say. I mean, and Wolverine's already dead.
Right.
So there's another variant in our universe, in the MCU, Steve Rogers is just old. He lived a different life. He went back in time and lived a different life. I think I think this Wolverine movie, or Deadpool, whatever, whoever your favorite character is, I think that we're going to get a potpourri of cameos in interesting ways. And I think all bets are off on this movie. All bets are off. And it's not just Steve Rogers. I think we're going to see all kinds of wackiness in this movie.
Well, I think tomorrow we're going to do we did this for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where we broke down the big chart about who do we think might make a surprise cameo. I think we're going to do that tomorrow for Deadpool and Wolverine. But just for all the four of us here, start with Rob. It's pure guessing, of course. Does Chris Evans appear in Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yes.
You think he does?
100%.
Jonathan? 100%.
100%.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Ray?
No.
Only
the TV screen is what we see of him.
All right. And you might very well be right. Anyway, guys.
Wouldn't that count?
I don't know. I don't think that counts. I don't think that counts.
Right?
Okay. Nothing pre-recorded.
Showing footage from previous movies doesn't count.
No, I think he absolutely does 100%.
Like, it does count on a screen in the one Spider-Man movie when he's Captain America doing the PSA announcement.
Yeah.
Because
Hey,
that's
kids,
new.
don't do drugs.
Yeah, I think 100% Chris Evans is going to appear in this movie.
Ned's going to appear in Deadpool. Wolverine.
Ned and Cap together. Ned with his sorcerer's ring.
Oh, yeah. He's the one who does the portal.
Yes,
So
he does.
Definitely
I
knows.
mean-
That's right. The portal that Wolverine and
Someone
Deadpool
had to
come
open
from.
that portal.
It's Ned.
Oh,
It's full circle.
He's going to be like, show us Deadpool and Wolverine.
and they pop open.
I mean, in this kind of movie, all bets are off, and you're dealing with the TVA. I mean, how many? Look at what we saw in Loki. How many variants of Thor are there? And how many variants of Loki?
Loki,
Yeah.
yeah.
We had Richard E. Grant Loki.
I love that one, by the way.
I mean, and who knows? Maybe they'll get Reb Brown to come back from the canon Captain America to play Captain America. Who knows?
All right, guys. Question is for you. What do you think about this? There's an internet rumor going around that he's already signed on to come back, but it does kind of coincide with the fact that we've been hearing that maybe he pops up in Wolverine or Deadpool and Wolverine. Do you think we're going to see him back again? If so, do you think it'll be in Deadpool 3? Maybe you think they'll wait till Secret Wars, or maybe you don't think he'll show up at all. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that all down, we're now going to move into the most important part of our show, which is taking questions from our audience. But before we do, we're going to take another quick second here and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Harry's. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Harry's. You know, guys, in order to start the John Campea Show, I had to leave my high-paying corporate job in order to set myself up to be happier and enjoy more personal success. Because sometimes to get what you want, you have to challenge the status quo and blaze your own trail. And that's exactly what the folks at Harry's did. You see, at Harry's, they saw customers getting ripped off by questionable products in the shaving industry and decided to do something better. Harry's decided to pave their own road by making beautifully designed razors for a fraction of the price of the other big brands. Exceptional products, honest prices. That's Harry's. I have fallen in love with Harry's, from their foaming shaving gel that feels just luxurious on the skin, to their incredible razor that feels just as good in the hand as it does going over your skin. They've got rich, lathering, skin-softening body wash in scents like redwood, wildlands, and stone. You see, Harry's provides German-engineered blades made in their own factory that stay sharp longer. You can get a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. Don't settle for the status quo. Blaze your own trail with Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/Campea. That's harrys.com/Campea for a $3 trial set. And thank you to our friends at Harry's for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions here, shall we? Jonathan, what do we got up first?
All right, first up, we've got Ian McAllister, who says, after rewatching Platonic on Apple TV... And
By the way, we can't see Ian on the screen.
Is it...
I think you got to go down. There he is. Now we see him.
Okay. So about there? All right.
Yep.
After rewatching Platonic on Apple TV and Neighbors, Rose Byrne might be my favorite female comedian on TV.
Oh God, I love Rose Byrne.
She's great.
She is so great. Like wherever she pops up, she always brings it. And I don't know why, but every time she does, I'm always surprised. You know, I think it's Neighbors that was finally the last click for me. It's like, my God, she's funny. And she's really good in Platonic too. Have any of you guys watched Platonic? That's Seth Rogen show?
No, not yet.
And watch it before I did, but she goes, you should really watch some of this.
The trailers didn't get me.
No, me either. Me either.
Yeah,
but
felt
again,
very formulaic.
Rose is incredible in it.
Cool.
All right, what's next?
All right, McAllister's back and says, in my opinion, Dave Bautista is by far the best to play Kratos. But a name I haven't heard anyone say that would be almost as good is David Harbour. Interesting.
David Harbour wouldn't be bad. I mean, listen, while the movie itself was terrible, David Harbour as Hellboy was not a bad choice.
Right.
You know, he certainly got into playing the character. Listen, would Batista be, if they announced Dave Bautista was playing Kratos tomorrow, would I be okay with it? Absolutely, I would. Would he be my first choice? I don't know if he'd be my first choice. I just think you got to have somebody maybe a little bit more dramatic, but let's face it, Kratos doesn't have a ton of dialogue. And he's just got to be, I mean, look, in an ideal world, you have Stargate actor Chris. What is Chris' last name? Who does the voice of Kratos?
Oh, Chris. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, I'm freezing on his name, but anyway, boy. I mean, the way he says that is just so good. I mean, but yeah, I don't think that would work. But Batista would be fine. Batista would be great.
Yeah.
I'd be down with that.
Chris Judge.
Judge, that's his name. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right, one more for me and McAllister. In terms of PlayStation adaptations, who has the bigger role in making the shows? Does Amazon, HBO just fund them, or do they each have a hand on the wheel? Where do we place the praise and blame?
Well, I mean, the production company is the company that makes it, right? And Sony has their own movie division now that actually makes that stuff. Now, I don't know if they specifically are the ones producing every single thing we have coming, but listen, this type of stuff is always, there's a lot of blame to go around, but there's a lot of credit that is due when something's good. When something's bad, a lot of blame to go around. So it definitely, the distribution partners always have a say in what's going on their network. They 100% do. I think the lion's share of the credit goes to the production company. But, you know, when you have somebody like HBO who just for decades continuously put out the greatest content, That's clearly a part of the equation as well.
100%.
But I would say, Rob, that the whether it's 51% or 81%, I think the majority of the credit goes to the production company itself.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
100%.
What's next?
All right, Matan Valensky says, to clarify what I was meaning on my question on Friday, I meant to the distaste, I don't
To
know.
the distaste the public
I guess
has.
the public has to Marvel humor after Love and Thunder, which I feel might turn people off for Deadpool 3.
Again, I disagree with you, Matan, because I don't think Love and Thunder is really representative of the humor in Marvel films. I think even for Marvel, that was a way going to an extreme that Marvel had not done before. The humor in Ant-Man is bang on and awesome. The humor in Infinity War was great. The humor in everything else is all great. Thor: Love and Thunder was not representative of the humor in Marvel. It was way beyond it.
It was also forced, like it was a different kind of humor that was injected into the movie. Whereas, I think back to Iron Man 2, when Natasha beats up Happy. They're in the ring together.
Yeah.
And she
That's a
takes
great
them out.
scene. It's
a great scene, but there's also there's humor that's intrinsic to that sequence and to set up that whole dynamic, which doesn't break the fourth wall. It's not a guffaw. It's situational humor that works within the universe there. And that's what the MCU was always very good at. They always had characters like Natasha talking to Steve about his love life. Hey, what about so-and-so from the secretary pool? That's something people would have, whereas the humor in Love and Thunder was coming out of a different place.
And I would say this, if you really want to take a look at it, look at Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That is more representative of the humor in the MCU.
Yes.
That everybody likes. Obviously not everybody, but that the vast majority of the movie-going audience likes.
100%.
And that is a better representative of the humor in Marvel films than Thor: Love and Thunder, which was just way off the range. All right, what's next?
Juliana Goodwin says, in Dune 2, we see two Harkonnen servants dead in the corner with black on them.
Yes.
Are we to assume the black stuff is from the Baron's bath, or did the Baron make their black eyes explode?
Oh, I mean,
I
don't
thought he
know.
just slit their throats.
I mean, look, they don't even look the way they look in the books.
Yeah.
Like they gave them their own aesthetic and look. I don't know if that's the color of their blood. I don't know.
Right.
My guess is going to be the color of blood, or maybe it's just the black residue on the Baron after he squashed them.
It's hard to say, really.
Listen, I think we did an open spoiler discussion for Dune Part 2, but maybe in a couple of weeks we should do like a Dune Part 2, let's really get into it video. We're really going to the minutia of stuff like that. All right, what's next?
All right, Ronetta says with a $20 super chat.
Thank you, Renetta.
Going to see Phantom Menace this weekend, and the only reason I'm going to sit through that movie is because I want to see my favorite two scenes, the pod race and the Duel of Fates fight. Don't care. May the 4th be with you all.
I hate that movie. And I will, for the rest of my life, go back to watch the pod race and the Duel of the Fates fight. I will always go back. Listen, I am somebody who, even in the movies I hate, I have a very easy time picking out the redeemable things about it that I really like and enjoy. And while I really don't like the Phantom Menace, there are things in the Phantom Menace that I do quite enjoy and I like. I know we were off to a rough start with, there's a trade dispute. Really? That's what a Star Wars movie's? There's a big trade dispute. Okay. But I am with you. The pod race, Rob, to me, the pod race is not just visually exciting. Take away the bad Howard Cosell aliens. Whoa, that's gotta hurt.
Oh, boy.
Quadranero.
Justice, by the way, for Ben Quadnero.
Yeah, justice. That's the
he
new
deserves
hashtag,
better.
Justice for Ben Quadnero. But I mean, not only is it visually exciting and thrilling, but I believe, and I've said this before on the show, the greatest sound designed sequence in movie history. When you just listen to the pod race scene, every pod having this unique sound, and the mixing in it is so good.
And the music at the beginning, John Williams' score with the pageantry of all the
Oh yeah,
flags and all that.
with the parade like atmosphere, and Yeah, there's good things in it.
There is really. And, I'll tell you something else. I wouldn't mind going back because I saw that movie at a special screening in 99. I wouldn't be adverse to going to see it in the theater again because I only saw it in the theater once. And the original Star Wars movies I've seen many, 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 many times. And maybe I'll feel differently about it.
I won't. I've seen it many times afterwards too. Keep trying to. Maybe I'll like it this time. Yeah, no. All right, what's next?
All right. Michael Robert Maximilian says over under $199.9 million opening weekend for Deadpool and Wolverine. Also, my wild prediction, Spielberg to direct Avengers 5 and Secret Wars.
Never, ever, ever going to happen.
He wouldn't want to be under control.
No. Yeah, you're not going to get, when Steven Spielberg walks into the room and say, okay, Steven, this is what I want. I'm sorry, excuse me? I don't know if you saw my parking space. It says Steven Spielberg. Yeah, that ain't never going to happen. Under $200 million opening weekend.
Yeah.
Like, Ray, can you double check what was Barbie's opening weekend number?
Let's see.
But listen, you even look at movies like it doesn't need to have the biggest opening weekend because I think this movie will make $1 billion. And when you look at guess what?
162.
162. That movie became well over $1 billion. The Avatar films both opened to under 100 million. I think. Well, no. Avatar 2 opened to more than 100 million, I think, but it wasn't 200 million. And I think one of the big drivers of Deadpool is word of mouth and repeat viewing. It's going to be what pushes it well over
134 for Avatar, The Way of Water.
so 134 million. Yeah, I just don't see it making 200 million opening weekend.
I see it at 120.
I think I don't think you're far off. I'm going to say
I'm saying 115.
I'm going to say 130. So I'll go a little bit higher, but I believe this movie makes $1 billion, and I think around 130. What do you think, Rob?
I'll even go up to 150.
You go up besides 150?
Yeah, but again, as we all say, always have to. The caveat is it has to be good.
Yeah, I think the rewatch is going to be insane.
Rewatch is going to be key, and that's really where it's got to be good comes in, right? For people to go back and watch it 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then bring more people with them, the movie's got to be great. So I think a big opening weekend, but I don't see it being 200 million. All right, what's next?
Connor Mull says, John, when will you admit that deep down inside you love the Dallas Cowboys? And can't wait to see them win the Super Bowl. I've been telling myself this every year for 23 years now.
There is honestly no team in the NFL I root against except the Dallas Cowboys.
That's how I am with the Astros.
They're both from Texas.
Yeah.
And they're both
Where's Chris?
nothing new.
Where's Chris? Defend your state, Chris.
And it's not about Texas because I like the Texans. I like the Texans. But yeah, there's every time the Cowboys get knocked out of the playoffs and Angel gets their wings. It's just a wonderful, wonderful time. And one of my favorite things in the world is tuning into ESPN to see Stephen A. Smith go crazy happy whenever the Cowboys lose. It's always pretty funny.
And to the person who wrote this, man, you're looking at the wrong sport. You should be excited for the Spurs and the Mavericks. Those two teams are going to be strong.
Yeah.
Especially with Wemby in the Spurs. That's almost
give them another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
but yeah,
man.
they're going to be Wemby's the real deal if he can stay healthy.
Look towards other sports if the Cowboys ain't doing it for you.
All right. What's next?
Okay. Yane Moore says, hey, John and crew, longtime fan of the show. Though was wondering who is in the middle of your show's poster near Ray. Is that Aaron? Yeah, that's Aaron.
Yeah, that's Aaron. That poster back there. I love that poster.
It's a great
by the way.
poster.
It's a fan. One of our fans designed that poster, and we liked it so much we actually had it printed. And Aaron that's Aaron in the middle of it. Aaron, of course, who with her husband Tom and now 2 children.
Oh,
2 children.
Two children now live in New York.
2 child.
But I still like having Aaron over there in the image. All right, what's next?
Okay, Unknown says, saw Spider-Man 2 last week and 3 yesterday. 3 is a guilty pleasure for me. I will defend it till the day I die. Really enjoying these releases. I wanted to go and see Spider-Man 2, but the theater was sold out.
I didn't even know if it was playing around us.
Yeah, it was re-released, I think.
Yeah, they did the release with all of them and stuff like that. It's a good time to go and catch these on the big screen again. It's a really good time to do that. All right, what's next?
All right. Basil ALK says, this weekend, one of my local cinema is having a 9-film Star Wars marathon. May the force be with me on this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would join you for 3 of them. 4 of them.
You know, I would go, look. There are other movies
Maybe
that I
5.
really enjoy.
I'll give you 5.
Rogue One is fantastic. I still to this day think The Force Awakens is a great movie. But even with that, to me, there are 3 Star Wars movies. It's New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi. Again, I love Rogue One and I really love Andor. And I love The Force Awakens. But obviously, I think the prequels are all trash. The Rise of Skywalker. The Last Jedi was mediocre. Had things I really loved about it and things I really hated about it. And The Rise of Skywalker. Man, don't even get me going on The Rise of Skywalker. How big of a disappointment that was to me. But I mean, it's still Star Wars, man. It's still the universe of Star Wars, and I will, even though I don't think the trailers look all that great, I'm still looking forward to watching The Acolyte. I mean, you got the showrunner from Russian Dolls doing that show.
I know.
So,
Have you ever watched the prequels in machete order?
What's
where you
machete
watch
order?
you watch Star Wars and Empire, and then you watch Attack of the Clones and Sith, and then Jedi, and you eliminate Phantom Menace entirely.
it doesn't matter.
But why would you go there, back, and then
Because
forward?
you find out that Vader is Luke's father.
Oh, so it's like
and
a
then-
flashback.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
then you watch
but
that
you
in
can't
between.
pretend it because you already know. Like the only way doing it that way,
I don't know. I have
really
pretty
see
big
how it
imagination.
works is if you get somebody who literally has never seen the Star Wars movies, get them to watch it in that order and see how it turns out. To me, look, a good movie's a good movie, a bad movie's a bad movie. It doesn't matter what order you watch them in. But
It's true.
but I mean, it would be an interesting experiment with somebody who's never seen a Star Wars movie to watch them in that order. That would be a neat experiment. I would like to see the results of that. All right, what's next?
We've got, Richard Lai. Furiosa is my most anticipated film of the year, and I can't help but think this film will show Hemsworth range outside of MCU and comedic roles. Absolutely.
Here's the thing. If you want to see Chris Hemsworth's range outside of the MCU and comedic roles, there's a movie he did with Baron von Zemo called Rush, directed by Ron Howard. I believe
Yeah.
Ron Howard
Yeah.
directed Rush.
Oh yeah, that. Oh,
The race car movie.
the
Daniel
one where it goes in
Bruhl.
his throat.
Ah,
Oh, that one's. Oh, that I couldn't watch after that.
Daniel Bruhl, Chris Hemsworth, based on the true story
Ugh.
of race car driving. Chris Hemsworth is fabulous in it. He's so good in that movie. And so if you want to see how good Chris Hemsworth would be, don't watch Black Hat, but rather go and see Rush. Go pick it up, rent it. Maybe it's on streaming somewhere. And I think Dementis is going to give us another really nice angle of him.
I would say though that Arrow released the director's cut of Black Hat, which is like watching a totally different movie.
Director's cut.
So
It's
over
complete-
director's
It's completely rejiggered, and there was scenes that I'd never seen before.
I've seen enough.
It's really.
I've seen enough
You
of
should try it
Black
again.
Hat.
I'll loan you the disc.
So ridiculous. All right, what's next?
All right. TJ Perry says Boy Kills World had S tier fight choreography and S tier gore. This is how you use a cheese grater. Ooh. Evil Dead Rise. Much more fun than Ungentlemanly Warfare.
I have not yet seen it. Again, they did such a bad job. They buried this movie. They buried it. They didn't even show anything for it at CinemaCon. And I didn't even know it came out this past weekend. So I got to get out and see
trailer's
it.
Great.
The trailer is great. And people who've been writing into the show who have seen it are actually saying it's pretty fun.
Yeah,
So-
I haven't heard one person who saw it that didn't love it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go out and see it. But man, they buried this movie. They just botched it. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Chubbs GPT says would be hilarious to see Ryan Gosling as the Deadpool variant.
The 2 Ryan Canadians absolutely would be. I hope they do it. That would be great. All right, what's next?
Carlos Souza.
Souza.
You guys hear a possible return by George Lucas?
Absolute 100% pure bullshit. Don't listen to it. All right, what's
He's coming
next?
back to do American Graffiti.
Yeah, if it's anything, it'll be another American Graffiti.
Dwayne Fernandez says, "Did you guys see the article about the Rock on the Rat? Not the best look for him right now. Hopefully, it isn't true though." And we covered that,
Yeah, we
but-
talked about that earlier in the show. Again, I wrote to somebody who worked closely with Dwayne Johnson, And I thought they were telling me that it wasn't true, but turns out they're saying, no, it's absolutely true. He does this. He absolutely 100% does this. And this is coming from somebody who really likes Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, unfortunately. All right, what's next?
Calvin Severo Pano says, John, I just read the writing that Dwayne Johnson was horrible on the Red One set, 8 hours late most days, pissing in Voss bottles, etc. Looks bad.
The pissing in water bottles has a story that's been around for a long time. To me, that's not bad. That shows a guy who's extremely dedicated to keeping everything on schedule and not wasting people's time. He doesn't even go to the bathroom. He just does it right there. Boom, on set. Let's keep going.
But if he showed up on time, you wouldn't have to worry about going to the bathroom.
That's the different thing. If he showed up on time, it's a very... Listen, I'll tell you what. I say this as a fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's a very disappointing thing to hear.
It is.
Very because there is nothing that bothers me more than people showing up late.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an odd thing that he gets his Johnson out to pee to keep the thing going on schedule.
Like you said, Rob, like when
His
you're
name is
talking
Dwayne
about,
Johnson.
it's literally like probably on his movies,
Rock
$18 a second. When you're dealing with $18 a second.
I can't even, it gives me agita. I can't
All right,
handle it.
what's next?
But for as much as he has to consume to maintain that body, he must have to go to the bathroom a lot.
Probably.
Yeah.
Cody Hunt says, hey, gang, today is my 32nd birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, brother.
I'm planning a movie marathon at the theater today. What are some films that you've seen on your birthday?
It's a great question.
Beats of Mayhem. Yeah.
Was that right? That was on
that's
your
what we
birthday.
celebrated. Yeah, so I could say that.
Deadpool and Wolverine comes out the day before mine. Doesn't quite count.
I can't remember any movie I've seen on my birthday, so I honestly don't know.
Oh, dude, I got birthday movies all the way back. My parents would take me. Birthday movies were huge for me. Friday the 13th, the original, was a birthday movie for me. Fury Road was a birthday movie for me, actually on my actual birthday. I mean, I've got a lifetime of birthday. Conan the Barbarian was a birthday movie for me. I had to beg my parents because it was R-rated. I've had a good run.
All right, what's next?
Andy says, hi, John. I was watching Sunday's open mic, and I'm glad to hear you had great friends who were totally down to take you to their first strip club.
Yeah, so I told the story. It's like I can't remember what somebody brought up. Oh, I know what it was. Somebody brought up the burlesque show that's going around called The Empire Strips Back.
Strips Back, yeah.
Oh
and
my God.
And I said, it might surprise you that me, Mr. Filthy, I've never been to a burlesque show. And then I brought up on the show, I said, as a matter of fact, I was in my 30s before I ever went to a strip club for the first time in my life.
Wow. And
I just told the story that me and some friends just finished recording a podcast in Hamilton, and a discussion kind of came up. There's me, two guys, and a girl. We were doing this podcast together, and it just kind of came up. Somebody brought up a strip club or something. I said, I've never actually been to one. And they were all like, you've never been to a strip club? I'm like, no. They're like, we got to go. Let's go. And we all went to Niagara Falls and went to my very first strip club.
I have to say, John, the best strip club I ever went to was in Winnipeg.
Really?
In Winnipeg.
The best there is.
And I'll tell you something. I was there for a film festival, and somebody we met at the film festival said it was time to go to the strip club because of Banana Fest. And I'm like, well, what do you mean?
You've already lost me on this story. I don't want to hear any more.
Oh, it was, let me just say, go Winnipeg.
Go Winnipeg. All right, what's next?
We got Kevin Cow who says, hopefully Chris comes back for Cap 4. I don't think Evans will be back for Cap 4.
I think he'll be back. I don't think we'll see him in Cap 4. Because listen, that is Anthony Mackie's movie, right? Have Chris come back, but not in Anthony Mackie.
No, it would undercut the film.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I don't think they'll do that. All right, what's next?
Dr. Stinky with some support.
Thank you, Dr. Stinky.
Arun Babaraj who says, can't Academy create some parameters and the studios can send some B-roll footage based on those for the Stunt Academy nominations? Just a thought.
Never work, and I'll tell you why. So the other day on open mic, we talked about, David Leitch just did a big interview about like why stunts deserve to have their own Academy Award. And I said, the thing is, I don't think you'll find anybody that doesn't feel stunts deserve to have an Academy Award category. I think everybody would agree that education should be free. Everybody would love the idea if education was free. But we can't have free education. Some countries have figured it out, but you know, a lot of people say we can't have free education because of all these particular problems that it would cause, right? And some people agree, some people do. But I think everybody, hey, in an ideal world, should everybody be able to go to university for free? Sure, because a more educated population is better for the country. But executing the idea may be problematic. Everybody agrees that stunt work should have deserves to have an Academy Award category for it. But the problem is, as we've talked on this show, is how do you do it? The people, the Academy, the 6,000 voting Academy members have no idea when they're looking at something, understand that was a stunt.
Yeah.
What wasn't a stunt. Like for all they knew in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, that scene where the train's going over the edge, that they actually got a train thing and tipped it horizontally and actually had Tom Cruise. Well, no, actually most of that was CGI. So what wasn't? Now, what people then said, Rob, after that, wrote in a lot saying, we know the answer. Here's the answer. Put together a 20-minute reel for every movie showing what stunts were done and how they did them and send those in. There. Problem solved. No, it's not, because here's the problem. No category in the Oscars, not one, has homework that the voters have to do aside from just watching the movie.
Right.
No category sends in a 20-minute, here's a 20-minute reel on the makeup of this movie. Here's a 20-minute thing on the music score of this movie. You can't do that. And then when you're talking about like 100 eligible movies, what are we doing? You can't have, then here's the other problem, Rob. The award doesn't go to best stunts. The award would then go to who put together the best sizzle reel of the stunts.
Right. And
it doesn't work.
Stunts are very intertwined with VFX now as well, because stunts are using safety measures and things that VFX later has to go remove. So it's hard. It's a really hard thing to define.
I wonder what you think about this, because David Leitch brought up something that's really interesting. His new movie, The Fall Guy, with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, they're the first movie in Hollywood history to have in the credits stunt designer. Traditionally, it's been stunt coordinator, whatever this. And David said, I think we've been looking at it wrong. The stunts, just like everything else, is a designed aspect of a movie.
Yeah.
They design how the fights will interact with the car chases, will feel to the overall film of this. And so he created a thing called stunt designer. And he thinks stunt design, which then could also incorporate how it used CGI and stuff like that. And I hope someday they're able to figure out, because I agree with everybody else. I think stunts should have, in an ideal world, should have a category. But I have yet to hear anybody give a really good, practical, doable way of making it happen. I hope they can come up with it, because it truly does deserve its own category. All right, what's next?
Some more support from Dr. Stinky.
Thank you, Dr. Stinky.
And then Damaris Love says, just saw the final trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It's awesome.
Dude, they showed us a bunch of that movie at CinemaCon, and it looks so good. I cannot wait to get into a theater and watch it. Actually, Anne is about to leave for Pittsburgh, because Anne's vice president of this company, but the company's base is in Pittsburgh. So every once in a while, she's got to fly out there. So she's getting ready to go back. She specifically told them, by the way, I need to cut my trip 2 days short because I got to fly back to LA and go watch Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Do I have a wife who's got her priorities straight? I mean, it ain't me, but it's at least Planet of the Apes.
You know, you should go out with her, because you could go visit the Monroeville Mall, which is about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, where they shot the original Dawn of the Dead.
Wow. I would, if I were to go out there, I would just be going to do a pilgrimage to where Mario Lemieux played hockey at the Pittsburgh Hockey Arena. That's I would be doing my pilgrimage there. Mario Lemieux, one of my all-time favorite athletes. All right, what's next?
We got Mr. I, and you may have to start just dragging this down on the screen because I can't scroll anymore.
That's fine.
$20 super chat, Mr. I. Hello, John and crew. I know you said no one has seen the D&W post-credit scene, Deadpool and Wolverine. Reports are that Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld has thoughts, or has thoughts. I hope it's Cap saying language. Bring on the filthy.
What I'm saying is anybody reporting what's in the Deadpool and Wolverine thing are bullshitting you. I can tell you they are. That's all I'm going to say on that. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I do not believe by the way, there's a chance there's not even going to be a Deadpool and Wolverine post-credit scene. I'm not saying there isn't. Let's be clear. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying there's a chance. But if there is one, I don't think it's going to be Cap saying language. That's a done joke already. It's a joke that's been done. And maybe they could use the movie, but it's certainly not something you end the movie with. You know,
I got a question for you.
All right.
Over or under, if Deadpool and Wolverine becomes $1 billion grossing film, do they do a sequel?
I think even if it's not over $1 billion film, they do a sequel.
A Deadpool and Wolverine sequel?
A Deadpool and Wolverine sequel. Now, I believe that Hugh Jackman, the plan is Hugh Jackman is done after this movie. But that was the plan for Joker as well. If this movie makes $850 million, let's go with your parameters, $1 billion.
Yeah.
He'll be back. They'll do another one. Somehow, some way, they will convince Hugh Jackman to do just one more. They may have to back up a dump truck filled with Spanish gold to do it, but if it makes over $1 billion and is well received and has the audience screaming for more. Now, and the reality is, listen, Hugh can only do this for so much longer.
Right.
Have you seen the workouts he's doing? The dude's in his mid-50s. He can't do that for much longer. Not at the rate he's doing it, not at the intensity that he does it at. So it would have to be fairly soon, but I'll say over 50% that if this movie is $1 billion film and well received and the audience is screaming for it, they'll do another one. I think they will.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
Miguel Zayen says, one director I would love to see do Thor 5 would be Kenneth Branagh. We've spoken about that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be poetic for him to come back? Another one would be George Miller, since he just worked with Hemsworth. Any preference?
Kenneth Branagh.
He'd bookend it.
It would bookend it perfectly. I thought Kenneth Branagh did such a masterful job with the first movie, incorporating the Shakespearean elements with a modern movie telling sensibility. And listen, he clearly still has a good relationship with Disney because most of you know this by now, but for those of you who don't, in Infinity War, of course, Infinity War starts off with Thor's decimated ship floating through space. And of course, Thanos and his children are on there torturing and getting ready to kill everybody, blah, blah, blah. But at the beginning of that scene, as the credits are fading off screen, you hear a distress call coming from Thor's ship. Mayday to anybody who can hear us. That voice, Kenneth Branagh. They actually had Kenneth Branagh come in to do that. So they clearly still have a connection.
And the Hercule, the Haunting in Venice, the third Hercule Poirot film is a 20th Century Studios movie. And he directed that.
I forgot it was a 20th Century Studios
so
movie.
he's still in business with Disney.
Yep. I think it would be very poetic. And to Jonathan, the way you put it, to bookend it with Kenneth Branagh started it, Kenneth Branagh ends it. I think it would be great. All right, what's next?
Miguel Zayen says, oh no, we just did that. Logan Vaughn says, should we look at Cassandra Nova's age in Deadpool 3 as a hint at our new Charles Xavier's age in the MCU? Since they're supposed to be twins, Emma Corrin is 29.
No, not at all. Now, I'm not saying I'm not saying that possibility is excluded. I'm not saying that at all. But make no assumptions, because Rob, fill in the blanks here, but Cassandra, her physical representation may not be a reflection of her age at all, because she spent her time in a non-corporeal form, like a lot of time, because according to the lore, and again, Rob, please fill in the blanks here.
Yeah, no, but
according to the lore, basically Cassandra and Charles were in the womb together.
Yeah.
And Charles just said, she evil. And Charles was able to banish her, but like Sauron in Lord of the Rings, her spirit endured.
Yes.
And it took some time before she was able to take corporeal form again and all that. So basically, she looks like that, but she could be as old as the Ancient One. And she looks like that, she could be 15. So I don't think it means she's going to be that age, although it might. How do you see it, Rob?
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Also, what version of her from what universe? Where did they get her from? There was no indication that in the Fox X-Men universe Cassandra Nova even existed. So if the Wolverine we're seeing in Deadpool and Wolverine is a different variant and isn't the Wolverine that died in Logan, they say you let your whole world be destroyed, in the trailer. So it could be a different version of Wolverine. People are saying, what if it's Wolverine from X-Men 3 who didn't kill Phoenix? So the Wolverine that we're seeing is from a different. I mean, if you look at the Fox X-Men movies, Days of Future Past changed the timeline. So is the and even when by the way, I love Days of Future Past, but when Wolverine comes back at the end of that movie, things are different. Scott's alive, Phoenix
Jean's
is alive.
alive.
And so there's all kinds of wacky things they could do. So who's to say?
And here's the other question, because in that scene where Scott's alive, Jean's alive, he's walking through the halls of the school, he passes Hank.
Yeah.
Dr. McCoy, aka Beast. Hello, Logan. Is that the Hank that then goes up to the space station? That photon at the end of the Marvels is then on and meets that. Is that Hank McCoy? That she maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah. So it's yes. I don't know.
A lot of possibilities out there. And guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us fun, interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Don't forget to come on back and join us again for tomorrow's show. I want to thank the people in the room with me: Ray Ora,
See you later.
Jonathan Voico, writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett.
See you tomorrow. My
name's John Campea. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.